Hello, my name's John Wadsworth. I'm a professional astrologer living in Glastonbury in Somerset in the UK, and this is my latest video post. And I'm posting today about an event which happens this Sunday, the 17th of April, and that's the retrograde station of Mars. So Mars is turning retrograde on Sunday the 17th of April. It does this every 2 years, and it will last for a period of about 2 months until the 29th of June. Now what happens here is that Mars appears to be moving backwards against the backdrop of the fixed stars of the zodiac constellations. And this was a phenomenon which was a great mystery in ancient times, and ancient astrologers had ways of trying to explain this. But it wasn't really until the discovery by Kepler of elliptical motion, the fact that the planets move in an elliptical orbit around the Sun, that we actually were able to understand why it is that this happens. And so obviously the planet isn't really turning direction, it just appears to be from our perspective on the Earth. So we call it retrograde motion, and it's always had significant astrological meaning. So I'll say a little bit about that now. So let's think about what Mars retrograde means. I mean, retrograde generally, we think of when a planet goes retrograde, its normal expression is compromised in some way, or it's turned inward. It becomes more reflective, more considered perhaps, but less confident. The planet is considered to be less confident in its ordinary expression than it ordinarily is when it's in direct motion. So let's think about Mars. Well, Mars is the warrior. Mars is the archetype of energy. It's what gives us energy, what gets us into action. It's the energy which gives us that inclination to confront life. It comes as an urge, as an impulse, as a drive, as a driving force. It's very sexual in nature, so it's our libido energy as well. It's what gives us that kind of sexual instinct to propagate, to penetrate life in however we do that, whether that's sexually or just in our everyday life. Mars is what gets us into action. Without Mars, we never do anything, we'd never get anything done. It's Mars that we call upon whenever we need to act physically or in any way in the world. And it's opposed in that sense to Venus, which is more receptive. Venus is how we attract energy towards us, whereas Mars is how we go out and get it. And it's often said that Mars goes out and does Venus's bidding. Venus kind of, has this idea of what she wants, and she wants to draw it to her, and she sends Mars out to get it. And it's interesting at the moment as well, because Venus and Mars are both in fire signs. Venus is in Aries currently, as I post this on the 14th of April. Venus is in Aries, Mars is in Sagittarius, and this retrograde station on Sunday the 17th happens at 8 degrees of Sagittarius. So Mars is in a fire sign where he's very comfortable and happy, because Mars is naturally a fiery energy, and being in Sagittarius is really kind of on a mission to further his activities, further his domain. He's on a quest. He's like on a kind of an expedition, or he wants to travel, to journey, to expand, to extend his. It's like a bit like a military campaign. Mars is a campaigner in Sagittarius. He's a canvasser. He's trying to persuade and inspire and encourage the expression of this Mars energy. The Sun is also in Aries at the moment, and Mars is often seen as the ambassador of the Sun, the one who goes out on behalf of the king, the sovereign, the queen, that sovereign energy of the Sun. And Mars is the ambassador, and very much in Sagittarius, he's sort of the foreign correspondent, going out into foreign lands, into uncharted territory. Mars wants to break new ground when he's in this sign of Sagittarius. So what's happening with the retrograde? So at this point where Mars turns, perhaps that normal confidence and exuberance of Mars in Sagittarius is compromised to some extent. Maybe there's a realization that we have to turn inward or consider something, or look to the deeper meaning of something. Sagittarius is about the meaning of life, the meaning of existence. It's how we give meaning to things. It's the bigger story of what's going on. So maybe we need to consider more the inner dimension of that story of where things are going, of how we are making our way in the world in some way. So it may be a time that if we've got projects and plans on the go, there's a lot of fiery energy around. There's a lot of planets in fire signs at the moment. Saturn's in Sagittarius as well. Uranus is in Aries. The Sun's still in Aries too. So there's a lot of fiery energy around. There's a lot of projects and plans and ideas. There's a lot of impetus. But with Mars now going retrograde, there's a slight conflict of interest here, or there's a hesitation perhaps. There's a need, if we've galloped away with something, particularly under that new moon in Aries energy last week that was so full on and so kind of full of new adventure. Maybe Mars is just sort of pausing a bit toward the end of this weekend as it turns retrograde. It's been slowing down for a while, so maybe there has been a sort of mixed, a slight conflict in terms of whether we can really go for it and use that Mars energy. So it heads back. It actually moves back into Scorpio. It does that. It moves back into Scorpio in late May. So it remains in Sagittarius for another month and a half, and then it moves back into Scorpio, and it actually goes all the way back to 23 degrees of Scorpio before turning direct again on the 29th of June. So when Mars goes back into Scorpio, Mars is back in his own sign, but he's back. We went through that intense period of Mars in Scorpio during the early part of this year, and that's a time when Mars feels very comfortable, but he's diving deeper. In Sagittarius, he's more out in the world, wanting to expand and spread himself and spread his energy around. In Scorpio, that energy comes back in. It's more condensed. It's more channeled inwardly. It's trying to get underneath things. Mars is an investigator when he's in Scorpio, and more of an explorer when he's in Sagittarius. So we have to kind of perhaps we're having to go back over some old ground here and look at what we've done, perhaps consider some of the consequences of our actions, and make sure that we perhaps look at where we've overlooked something, where our energy, our anger, our passion has kind of spiraled out of control, or has done some damage, or has not been appropriate. Maybe we're having to reflect on that, go in with that, dig a bit deeper underneath something. Maybe we've acted impulsively, and we have to look back at, make sure that was really what we intended to do, and maybe we have another chance to do it again, and to do it better, or to do it differently, as Mars comes direct again then through the summer, July and August. And by the time we get to the 21st of August, Mars will have reached this degree of 8 degrees Sagittarius and moved out of what we call the retrograde zone, and it will be moving on then through the rest of that sign and be clear of this period of retrograde energy that's around. So it is a period where we have to, in a way, access more the inner warrior. And that's what I would say is the sort of theme of Mars retrograde, is that we've got to go inward, we've got to connect to that deeper inner warrior, make sure that our actions are aligned to our deeper purpose. Because Mars can go off half-cocked sometimes, especially when he's in a fire sign. Albeit that Mars loves to be in a fire sign, it's, sometimes it can roar and rage too much, and there can sometimes be a kind of blind faith or blind passion when Mars is in Sagittarius that will definitely be checked in this retrograde phase, particularly when we go through the latter part of that, when Mars goes back into Scorpio, when we're having to dig really deep underneath for what's underlying our actions. I hope that's helpful. I hope that's inspiring in some way, and it helps put some context around whatever it is that's going on in your life at the moment. I'm going to keep posting on here. You can find out more about my work at www.kairosastrology.co.uk. I run courses and classes and workshops here in Glastonbury. I'm also creating an online course, so I'll be teaching astrology directly online as well. And I hope you keep following, keep enjoying these videos. Thank you very much.